Hey Tiffin, welcome to Tiffin Talks. I am Mayor Tim Kasparek,
And
joined
I'm
by
Mayor
my
Pro
good
Tem
friend,
Tim Orris.
Mayor Pro Tem Tim Orris, and council person. I never know how to say that really.
You
You
know,
start as a council person, but I appoint you as Mayor Pro Tem. I don't know.
you got me. I just put MPT behind my name when they asked for the Tim on the city council because there's Tim the mayor and myself, and
I
so
I may have been told that you've been using the MPT as your sign off lately, and I think that that's fantastic. That has made its way
well,
back to me.
I'm just happy with councilman. I don't have to be an MPT, but if it works, it works. I don't know.
All right. Well, hey, everybody, all of our listeners across the globe, this is our pilot episode of Tiffin
Woohoo!
Talks, episode number one. We're going to see how this goes. For those of you who haven't heard, this is something that Mayor Pro Tem MPT and I have been talking about for what, at least a year?
Yes, it's been a year.
I think when I took office, one of the things that we talked about was how do we get more information out to the public in a manner that's maybe a little bit more fun and easy to digest, as opposed to coming to a council meeting and going through the structural process of a council meeting. So
Right.
that's where this came from, and you know.
It actually started almost as a joke. It's like, oh, we could do our own podcast. And the longer we talked about it, the more serious we got. And we thought, oh man, yeah, we could do this. We could probably get this thing going. And I think it's going to be a great thing, to be honest, Tim.
Yeah, and I just to let everybody at home rest easy. We're not this slow normally, but I think a misconception about our lives is that all we do is worry about the city all day, which that is a big portion of our lives, but we do have other things happening in our lives. So, you know, uh, Tim being retired, I'm not retired, but neither one of us have podcast experience. So some of this,
Yeah.
I'd like to give a big plug to Assistant City Administrator Ashley Platz. She helped quite a bit on
Yay.
this, and she's in the background. She doesn't want to be on microphone, but so much thanks to her for getting this off the ground and for giving us the little nudge that we needed to get this going.
Yeah, because it wasn't for we'd still be laughing and talking about it. You know, we got Ashley involved, and suddenly we were the ones that got our feet put to the fire about, okay, you guys, we're doing this, we're doing this. So yeah, big shout out to Ashley and for
Well,
all.
Well, and I think part of it for me too, just to add a little bit of background as well, is uh, one of my favorite events that I get to attend throughout the year, and I don't get to attend all of them just because, again, it's a daytime commitment that I can't always make, is the senior coffee hour. And Tim, I know you attend that event pretty
Oh, you
regularly.
bet.
And one of the things that if you haven't been to that event and you're a senior, I don't know what we're dictating as qualifications for being a senior, but I don't think it really matters. If you want to come and you're available, it's, what is it, once a month, Tim?
Yes, the fourth Tuesday of every month.
Okay. And typically that's led by City Administrator Doug Bolt. What I enjoy is he generally has a program that he lines up, whether it's, Sheriff's Department coming in and talking, or Public Works coming and talking, or something like that. In the times that I come, I just really enjoy it because it gives us an opportunity to speak openly about what's happening in the city, without having to type a bunch of words or sit in a structured meeting. So
Yep.
for me, I know a lot of it was just kind of using that experience and trying to put that in a format that can be more publicly consumed, like a podcast.
Right. And those meetings are very nice because you get feedback from the citizens that come, or good questions that you may not have thought. So that's kind of what we're hoping with this, is this will create questions that people want to reach out and say, or maybe ask us, hey, could you do a segment on? something,
Yeah.
whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so we're still feeling this out. So again, if you're listening to this for the first time and there's something that you really want to hear about, please let us know. You can find our contact information on the city webpage. You can always reach out to city staff as well. Like I said, Ashley Platz is helping us organize this quite a bit. She would be a good resource to reach out to. But yeah, I think you and I both see this very similarly. We may be hitting up different locations where perhaps if people really want to see our faces um, while we're chatting away, we could go on some remote segments or I can see future episodes with maybe bringing in some CCA students, athletes,
You bet.
music, whatever it is. I just think this is again a great platform and format for us to just talk.
Yeah.
Tiffin Talks.
All right. Well, enough about us. Enough about the broadcast. Let's talk about let's do Tiffin Talks and let's talk.
And I like that. Just so that we know, later in the segment, we've got Public Works Director Brian Detert.
Oh yes, yes.
So we'll be hearing from him. And I think we got some great questions. It's a poignant time for us to have Brian in regarding winter weather and how Public Works does all of this. And you pulled out an interesting tidbit. We pre-recorded that segment. Brian's a pretty busy guy, so we pre-recorded, but you pulled out a nice nugget. Maybe throw your little teaser in there, Tim.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to find out what the very first snowplow Brian used in the city of Tiffin, and remember, he's been here 25 years, you're just going to have to stay and listen to his podcast, and you may find out.
There you go. If
That was
that
my
doesn't
question.
get
I'm taking credit for that. That was my question.
if that doesn't get people excited, I don't know what will.
I
So
know
that's
exactly.
that's amazing. So yeah, next segment, city updates. So what are the upcoming events and deadlines that people might want to know about throughout town? The major things that are happening. I think we got a list here. And again, I think number one, census. You've seen a lot of signs around town. The team at City Hall has been doing a great job getting messaging out. We had a ton of momentum at the end of 2025, and then boom, government shutdown happens, and we're at a standstill. So that has reconvened and picked back up. So just a heads up to everybody out there, calling and door knocking will be happening imminently. If you haven't responded, and some folks, given the time frame of when you may have moved into the house, when the house was built, things like that, dictate a lot of that, but that work will be starting soon.
And if you are not home, don't worry. They will leave a card in your door to let you know that they've been there.
Okay. Okay. And Tim, you and I both know the answer, but why is the census so important for what we're trying to do?
It's literally, it gives us so much from the state because of the population of the town. Right now, they recognize us, say, well, so I'm just throwing a number out there, 4,500. If there's actually 6,000 people or possibly 1,000 people, that is so much additional monies from the state that we can get to help build Tiffin and make it a better place. So it's really kind of important we recognize who's here and that you stand up and be counted, so to speak, because it's only going to help all of us.
Yeah. Fantastic explanation. Yeah, so the more help that everybody can give to that, the quicker we can get it done. Gosh, we'd like to have that done by the end of January if we can. There's federal government deadlines coming up around that time as well. And God forbid, hopefully we don't see another shutdown or anything like that.
Yeah.
And we can keep that work going. But
Well,
that's a big one.
Barring a shutdown, January 30th is when we, a completion date we're shooting for. But like I said, that's very subjective at this point. It could be longer if the government impedes this in some way.
Yeah. And fun little fact, I was at City Hall just this morning, and if anybody's been curious as to why we keep moving council meetings around at different locations, it's because of the census.
Yep.
The census does require to have a certain amount of space and a certain amount of desks, and it's got to be closed off and it can't be visible and all sorts of things. So if you stop in at City Hall and you glance to your right into the hall chambers, you're going to see it all papered off. There's nothing illegal or undue happening in that room. That is where the census is located. And I thought I had a good laugh at it this morning because that's the first time I saw the windows actually covered up on that room. So I thought it was pretty funny walking in there. But if anybody around town, you've been wondering, why do they keep moving the council meetings to different locations? That's why. So I think we are all anxious to get back into our home again, and again, city staff has done such a great job
Yep.
coordinating and helping us move those around, and so that's why.
I know I got to look at the agenda every time to find out where I'm supposed to go for the council, because I may have showed up at the wrong place once or twice before and wait a minute, where are we at? Oh, crud. So,
No, that doesn't sound like you at all, Tim. The
oh, no,
MPT,
not me. Huh?
the
No.
MPT doesn't go to the wrong location. No
Hey,
way.
just shh. If my wife hears me say that, she's going to say, oh, yes, he does. So shh.
All right. So census is checked off the board. Now let's talk about some of the really fun stuff. I consider the census to be kind of that's like the mechanical, that has to get done. But let's talk about some of the other really big initiatives that are happening in the city right now. And I'm going to start off because this is so important, because I feel like we have a lot of residents who still don't realize that this is happening because it's tucked in the back of the city. The water treatment center upgrade project has been started. And that was started, what, late summer, early fall, Tim?
Yes. Concrete is being poured. Generators are being installed. I mean, this thing is it's in the process, and it's moving along very smoothly. There's not been many wrinkles with it at all.
Yeah.
If you have
You know,
wrinkles in concrete, I guess. I don't know. So.
and there were some early delays, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but obviously in a project like this, permitting does need to run through the DNR. The DNR was backed up, and there were some delays there. So we were a little disappointed that some of those delays happened, and we could have gotten started a little bit sooner. But as of right now, we are on track. That should be finished by the end of 26. Now, don't hold me to it. I can't promise any dates right now, but the end of 2026 is what we're hoping for a project completion date. And I think what's really exciting about that is the planning, the pre-planning and conversation that went into that project, I think was fantastic. If I remember right, and again, this is at least a year ago now, we're good up to about 20 to 25,000 residents with this upgrade on that water treatment center, with room to grow. So we're good up to 2025 with what we're doing right now. And in the future, as we surpass 20 to 25, that just becomes bringing in more equipment to be able to process through that water. So
it's being built to be able to bring that in without any additional major construction anyway.
Correct.
Now there's a question everybody's asking right now. You only have a year-long memory, Tim. Is that what you're saying? You said that from a year ago. Just throwing it out there,
Hey, that's not funny. I do feel like my memory is not what it used to be. So, Tim, I don't want to throw you under the bus and say that you're a little older, but you may be a little bit older than me, just by a smidge. So if you have any hot tips as to how I can help that memory along, you please let me know.
Dude, don't make me get my cane out and hit you with it. I mean, okay, yeah, I'll give you tips. But the reverse osmosis plant is a water plant I'm excited about it because I think it's going to solve a lot of problems, both with you supply water, and then also the compliance we have with the wastewater treatment plant. So it's
Yep.
really going to be a good thing, I think.
Yeah. Fully reverse osmosis system coming in end of 2026. It is underway. The team at City Hall is working to get progress pictures updated. Again, I know it's not, it's kind of one of those things out of sight, out of mind. It's one of the most important things that we have going on in the city. And I don't need to tell anybody who's listening to this call that understands the importance of that project. But yeah, since it's kind of buried back in there, back behind City Park and the ball diamonds, it doesn't get enough visual attention, but that is happening, and couldn't be more excited for that. Continue to replace your anode rods in your water heaters until those get done. But yeah, really, really excited about that project.
Now, Tim, another exciting project I want to move on to that's very visible is the rec center.
It is very visible.
That is going vertical with steel. People can see it's actually, well, I should say, the first phase of the rec center. I want to make sure that's clear.
Phase one.
Phase one of and it is looking good.
It's so funny, and we were told in a lot of the planning meetings, it's kind of going to be one of those like hurry up and wait, or you're inching to it, and then all of a sudden, and I feel like that steel structure went up in a matter of a week, I think, from the time I saw the first beam go up. And yeah, it's really exciting, I think. And they also described the phases perfectly. I think when that first structure, which is essentially the main portions of the gymnasium, went up, I don't know about you, but as I drove by, I was like, God, I don't know, maybe, is that big enough? I don't know if it's big enough. And then when a couple of the wings went on, then you start seeing kind of the size of the entire structure. And man, it's going to be nice, and it looks really good so far.
So because it's not going to be done until the fall of 2026, Tim, this year's New Year's resolution that you're going to get away with, but next year you're going to have to get on the exercise bike at the rec center.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. So am I hearing, in a matter of about 5 minutes, I get criticized about my memory, and now I'm getting I don't even know what I want to say, shamed about my appearance. I don't know what's happening here, Tim.
No. I want you to keep your good appearance intact. See.
Hey, just a heads up, just so that you're aware, and we'll talk about this later on, is, appointments are going to start ramping up for the next year. Officially, my new term starts January 1st.
Yeah.
And then I've got to appoint the MPT again.
Oh, yeah.
So
yes,
I just, something you may want to, just keep it.
You don't.
There it is. That's
worry.
what I was waiting for.
You don't need
That's what I was waiting for. It's so funny though. We're pretty close here in the home, from my home, with where the rec center is, and so I do get to see it quite regularly every day, and it's amazing. The folks at Myron are doing an amazing job over there, and I think it positions us well for the future, and what we're going to be able to do with that building, and provide the programming for before and after school, helping out the schools with overflow from their leagues and things like that, and and obviously our own Parks and Recs programs when it comes to basketball and volleyball and all of those things that having a building for is going to be so valuable. And then the community spaces, and exercise rooms, and all of those things, just amenities that we haven't had before.
Yes, correct. I'm excited.
The other thing I wanted to touch on there too, because I think this is so important, and you mentioned it early on, this is phase one. So Tim, why don't you tell our listeners what phase two is projected to have? Because I think that's what a lot of people want to talk about.
Right. Well, and I will tell you what was, as Tim the mayor said, the projection was actually a competition swimming pool, and also a zero entry, I believe, pool. that's what, you always have what you'd like and what you actually get. What we'd like is to have that. That way, we don't have to send our swimmers to the Amanas or North Liberty or wherever to compete. They can do it right here in Tiffin. And so, but that was the idea. And then also to have the zero entry, so there was, an entertainment. I don't know what you'd call it, what the actual term is, but a pool that's not allotted just for, well, it isn't just allotted for competition, but kind of serve all purposes, maybe is a good way to put that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and,
And I think,
but I'll say, and that'll be a while because of course we'd like it to be a joint effort with the city or the schools.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think that's important to note. And I think this goes without saying, but uh, a pool entity is a big undertaking, and not just from the initial capital cost, but the ongoing maintenance of operating a
exactly.
facility like that is really expensive. We really need to get our ducks in a row. And yes, we would love some collaboration with um, CCA schools, and there's been some leadership changes there, so we're continuing those conversations. But there has been support for that. They've been fantastic in those conversations, and I think from a standpoint of when they're going to be ready and when we're going to be ready, meshes really well. And I think I know there is a large faction of the community that would love to see a pool in phase one, and just understand that we heard you, we continue to hear you, and those conversations are ongoing, and we are marching in that direction.
Right. And that's why I say this is phase one of the rec center, because I've had several people say, well, there's no pool, so we're not getting one. It's like, no, we're getting one, but we're going to do it fiscally, responsibly, and we're going to do it right when we do it, so that when it's done, there's no issues, whether it be poor construction or poor planning or anything like that. So
Yeah,
yeah, so it's coming. It's just step by step, baby
yeah.
steps.
So a recap on the phases. Phase one is the existing structure as you see it right now. A lot of basketball courts, couple of indoor batting cages, turf area, couple of exercise rooms, a community space, locker rooms, things like that. Phase two would be the pool, and then phase three would be potentially adding on to that indoor space. So
Right.
that's what's all in the works right now, um, and also a little point of emphasis: we are going to retain soccer fields out behind the structure, and
Yes.
it's pretty remarkable when we sat with engineers. We are not losing a lot of space. I
No.
think if I remember correctly, again, this is my memory here, Tim, but I think we are only losing a couple of fields over there. Um,
And
and
they
so,
already been replaced and over in the park at
yep,
this point
yep,
anyway. But yeah, that was a main point, is we didn't want to sacrifice all of our soccer fields for rec center, because then
yeah,
and so the conversation was, okay, the ones we lose, where can we move them to? And
hmm
apparently we were able to move them, and I say apparently because the park and recs people dealt with it, and I believe we've got a good replacement at this point anyway.
yeah.
They will
And
never go away. We will always have our soccer fields.
yeah. No, and lastly, before we move on, I think one of the really kind of unspoken things, it kind of came about late in our planning process, but that I'm really excited about, is the ability for us to throw a really large sign on the east side of that building facing the interstate. I just, for years,
Oh,
even before we located here, Tim, my family and I came to Tiffin in 2018, and so we're coming up and down Interstate 380 all the time to Iowa City, and back and forth to Cedar Rapids. And you look over the off the interstate there, and you kind of, if you don't know it, you don't know what that is over there, right? So I'm really excited. I know that sounds silly, but I think us having a nice Tiffin sign on the back side of that building, give us
we need
just a
our own
nice little
identity.
identity. Exactly. Exactly.
I agree that I like it, to let them
So,
know it's us, not
yep.
anyone else.
So lastly, in the kind of city updates round robin here is something else that I mean, I keep saying this because I'm excited about all these, but this is the one that I think really moves the needle a lot for us as a community, and that is the commercial development activity that we are seeing in the city right now. As of last council meeting, building manager Brian Shea announced that the permits and commercial development that is underway right now is collectively more than we've had in the entire city, period, full stop.
Forever.
Um,
Yeah.
and obviously, there's some big entities that are going in that we all know and are really excited about. But they're, and it's too early for some of these to be announced. I don't want to spoil the party for some of those folks wanting to do some announcements as they get going. But I'll tell you, Tim, we've heard it for years in terms of, you know, hey, that's great. We've got all this residential growth, but what about commercial? What about commercial?
Right.
It's happening. And I think,
Yep.
some things needed to fall into place for that to happen, but I couldn't be more excited for the growth.
And we've got big businesses, we got big, larger, but we also have a lot of small businesses coming in, and that's what I like. We're getting a good mix
Yep.
of commercial development. So it's as I say, you're excited, I'm excited. Yes, I think it's an exciting time.
And I think one of the things I want to point out too is, once a year, it's usually one or two of us that go out to the large retail show, and it's essentially for municipalities to talk to large retailers, and it's mostly national chains. And I think one of the things that our folks should know is the regional chains have a very specific way about um, stepping into new locations and new logistical areas for them. And because of our proximity to Coralville and North Liberty in particular, we are limited in a lot of the national chain stuff based on how they move demographically into new spaces. So just know that we continue to monitor those things, but I know my priority is we need to be identifying and recruiting some of these more regional based entities and local entities. I hear it time and time again, and I couldn't agree more. Man, if we could get like a little family restaurant that serves breakfast in particular, I think would be amazing. Uh,
Yes.
I don't want to disparage anything that we have currently, but man, someplace that you can eat breakfast and get a cup of coffee would be amazing. So I share sentiments of a lot of our community as well.
What should Tim? Should we do like a top three things that people at Tiffin should know right
I
now?
think I think so.
Okay,
And
deal.
yeah.
Okay.
So top three things residents should know this month.
Yes. All right. Go.
Number,
Yeah. This month. This month. That's good.
yeah. I don't think that these are in any particular order, but high on the list is registering your pet.
Yep.
So
It's
we've got,
it,
go ahead, Tim.
it's cheap and easy.
Number two on that list for this month is I would like to wish a happy retirement from city service to our good friend Councilman Al Havens is retiring.
Yay.
Um, Congratulations to his replacement Tony Johnson.
Yep.
Excited to have interest in new blood within the council. I think the democratic process is so important to what we do. So it's great to see people step up and want to assume those roles. But Tim, you worked with Al a lot longer than I did. Um, but
Tremendous, tremendous gentleman. I have the utmost respect for him. When I first got on council, he invited me out to have coffee, not to try to convince me of anything, but just kind of let me know what I was getting into. Kind of, I don't want to say use the word train, but acclimate. And so I would say to people around town, if you see Al Havens, shake his hand, thank him for his over 11 years. I know he was on the council for 11, but I think he was I know he's in the planning and zoning and several other areas. And then, and when you see Tony, welcome him on, shake his hand and say, welcome to the council. Make good decisions. That's what Al told me. That's what I'm just happy.
That is kind of a prerequisite, isn't it? Just make good decisions.
Right.
Make good decisions. Yeah, no, I echo the sentiments, Tim. I think Al's just such a steady, pragmatic thinker in terms of how he goes about his process and what he brings to the city and has brought to the city. And I think you touched on it, 11 plus years of service is such a long time. And for him to give that time and dedication means a lot. And so thankful to him. So thank you, Al Havens. If you're listening, once again, your impact will be felt for years to come.
Oh, yes.
Well into the future. So thank you for everything you did. And then lastly, also really excited. I think we've overused, maybe that's what we're going to do. Most overused words for each episode of the podcast. I think today would be exciting. And so with that, the last exciting update for us today for number 3 on the list for this month is we have a new Parks and Rec director starting on January 7th.
Yes.
That Go ahead, Tim.
Is energetic. He's got energy just exuding from his personality. I'm excited to see him get on board.
Yeah. That interim director, Ashley Platz, man, she wears a lot of hats. And, from what I understand, she's so dedicated to this extra responsibility. During basketball preseason, she actually kept all the balls in her office. That's how dedicated she was.
Wow.
She really liked to have them all close by because she considered them to be part of her. The dedication,
like a comfort thing, right?
Yes, the dedication that she shows in that is just absolutely amazing to me. So anyway, but yeah, new Parks director starting on January 7th. We will make sure we get an official introduction launch when he comes on, and as you see him around town, please give him a warm welcome. He's young, he's hungry, he's ready to attack this. He comes very well qualified and very experienced, and
he
really
wants to make Tiffin Rec and Parks even better than it is. He's already got ideas that he's coming up with. So be prepared.
Yep. So man, those are the 3 really exciting things for the month. And I don't know.
Exciting, Tim.
And Jeez. This is just episode 1. Like I can't imagine what we're going to see on this list going forward.
My only hope is there's an episode 2.
All right. Hey, we are going to move into our first inaugural interview with none other than our Public Works Director, Mr. Brian Detert. Brian, who also has a face for radio, is very excited to be here with us today, I think. Brian, why don't we start off by just telling our listeners a little bit about yourself, perhaps how you got to where you're at today. And then we're going to move into a whole slew of questions for you, put you on the spot regarding winter public works activity and some other fun things.
Hey, Brian, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for being our first guest, by the way.
Well, I appreciate the invite. So, yeah, I've been working for the city for 25 years now. When I first started here, there was just 2 employees, and gosh, I think we're up to 23 or 24 guys and ladies around here now. So, seen a lot of growth over the years.
Brian, did you start in public works or did you come up through other ranks?
I started in public works. I actually, Brett was the head town man, and I just mowed all the parks for him.
Okay, I got questions. What was the very first unit you used to plow snow with?
Actually, I was in a John Deere tractor plowing the streets of Tiffin.
Oh, okay. I
That's
always
crazy.
wondered that. So
Yep.
That's
Brett,
crazy.
Brett had the truck and I had a tractor.
That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
as it relates to that, Brian, I think something that our listeners, all two of them out there, would like to know is how does Public Works prioritize snow removal and street maintenance?
As far as the way I prioritize it is, we've got so many subdivisions in town that I basically designate a certain truck to different neighborhoods. As far as our dump trucks, we focus those on our main arterial streets, such as Ireland Avenue, Roberts Ferry, North Park Road, Oakdale, Goldfinch. Our highly traveled roads. Those are getting hit immediately, and the rest of the guys they'll hit their main streets of their subdivisions, and then they just slowly dwindle down into our side streets and then our cul-de-sacs and gravel roads.
Brian,
So,
as me as a citizen, what can I do to help you without, doing your job? What can I help you during this snow removal process?
I know a lot of people always think they're helping us out by doing certain things.
Well, that's
But
why I don't want to make you more work as part of the problem.
yeah, I love how everybody likes to park their cars on the street so we don't plow their driveways in.
Is that how that works? Okay.
Yeah, and so that's always a challenge for the guys, and it's just easier if people would just park in their driveway so that we can clear the street off. The sooner we can get that street cleared off for them, the sooner they can actually park back on the street.
Okay.
So I know it doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes to people, but plus it's just less they got to plow out of their driveway if their car's parked there.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. Well, maybe
So,
the question should have been what shouldn't we do instead of what do we do? All right, thanks, Brian.
so Brian, I think I have this thought almost every winter. I say to myself, man, I think it would be really cool to get into a truck and spend like one big snowstorm with the snow crew plowing snow. And then I quickly realized I'm only gonna be able to do that for like one day and then I'm done, right? I'm out. So without somebody getting in a truck, what are some cool behind the scenes facts about the equipment or the process to removing snow?
I would just say, since I've been here so long, starting with the equipment that I had to what the equipment we have now is, I don't know, a real big accomplishment for me and the citizens, because the equipment we have now makes our job just so much easier. The technology that's in these trucks to run them, it's just it's not as demanding on the body having to sit in that truck for hours on end. So that to me would be, just the equipment the city's been able to purchase for us to make our jobs better.
Brian, realizing you have many challenges, not only just the snow removal, but what's your biggest challenge with the snow removal process, like on a big snowstorm like we had here weeks ago?
I would really say I know all the citizens like to get out and they love taking care of their driveways. And when we have those long storms that are 6-8 hours long, we're sending trucks out in shifts every couple hours to re-clear the streets, and 9 times out of 10 somebody's already got their driveway clean, and of course we get that bad scowl look from them of, you just filled my driveway in again. And I mean, my biggest recommendation to the citizens would be, when you see us finally done with your street, then go ahead and scoop out the end of your driveway, and that would make it a lot less work on the citizen.
How do we know when you're done? Because I mean, I know that's a silly question, but is there a number of times you go by, a distance you want to get from the curb?
Typically, the typically the way I have the guys go about it is when I see the snowstorm is done, I mean, they'll be doing a pass each way typically, but when we're doing our final cleanup for the storm, that'll be us plowing all the way back to the curb and putting salt down. So when you see we've made it all the way back to the curb and you're seeing salt go down, that 9 times out of 10 should tell you that, hey, we're probably done with your street for this storm. Go ahead and do your final cleanup for your house.
Perfect. So when do you decide to use salt as versus plowing? That you led right into that question. That was nice.
Yeah, well, it all depends on the storms. I mean, literally last night's storm, we had that coming through and it looked like it was going to be a flash freeze versus a snow. So it looked like we basically were just going to have to put some salt down to keep the ice from forming. And woke up this morning and we had that little bit of skip of snow overnight. And we really didn't even have to put any salt down. We just had to plow a couple drifts off because the wind kind of helped us out with that. So it's always kind of in between. It just depends on the type of the system that comes through on, that decision to be made.
All right. So you're saying Mother Nature is one of your employees too, then?
You know it. Absolutely.
So Brian, I think we get these questions quite a bit in terms of just the rotation of a cycle of your process when a snowstorm comes through. And I'm going to guess that the answer to this question maybe it depends. But what's the timeline for clearing all streets after a heavy snowfall? How are you and the team gauging what should be done and by what time?
So, yeah, that is depends on the storm. But I'm going to say luckily for us, we're very fortunate that the way a lot of our systems have rolled through the last few years that, we're rolling out of the shop, between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning so that we can make sure that by the time the citizens are waking up and getting their cars running and getting ready to head off to work, that our streets are clean enough for them to get to their job like they need to. And that's my priority, that, the citizens and the school, making sure them kids can walk to school, parents can get them to school. That's the biggest priorities that I focus on is, people and their jobs and our school system.
So that kind of dovetails into our next question, Brian. So good timing on that. You're a pro at this. You're just anticipating the questions before they come. How do you coordinate with the schools and emergency services during winter weather?
I really don't coordinate a whole lot with the schools. I just kind of keep up with, watching their delays and stuff when they have them. But for the most part with that, we're both basically on the same page, the school and us. As far as like emergency wise, our fire marshal's in the same building as me. So him and I get to talk an awful lot when we see these bad storms coming in. Like last month we had, a fairly bad one and, we just worked through, I was provided one of their radios so that I could monitor their traffic. So that if I heard some kind of call going out here in town or even out towards the interstate, I mean, I was immediately being able to call one of my guys in that area and say, hey, this is getting ready to happen over there. Make sure you've got that street cleaned up for the emergency crews to show up. So it's a fairly good system that we have in place. So that's good to work with.
Brian, living in Iowa my whole life, I know winter's so good to the streets. I mean, it doesn't degrade them a bit. But if it would, for example, how do citizens report to you like potholes that have popped up or like an icy intersection? What's the best way to get a hold of you to do that?
Oh goodness. The simplest way to report that stuff is just immediately call City Hall. And the ladies in that at City Hall do a real good job of getting that information passed on to me as fast as they can, so that, you know, if there's an issue out there, I get my guys out there and we get it fixed as soon as possible.
Okay,
So
great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey, let's, for all of our listeners out there, just reading between the lines here, Brian does not want you to use his personal cell phone to tell him about potholes that need to be fixed and streets that need to be plowed. So, uh, Mayor Pro Tem Tim, quit calling Brian personally. Can't do it.
All right.
That includes
Come
you.
on.
That includes you.
Well. His guy kept plowing my driveway closed, so I had to call him and, you know, ask him.
No, we do have some, you know, obviously, Brian, you're a popular guy. You know a lot of people in the area. You've been here for a long time. So I would imagine you do get some personal text messages and phone calls. And
oh, absolutely.
and so,
Absolutely.
you know, everyone, it does make life a little bit easier when you call and direct traffic through City Hall, because then we know what's happening and can coordinate everything. And you know, like Brian said, everyone at City Hall is doing their best and direct traffic at a really, really good level. So it's just really helpful to direct everything through there.
Well, and it's a little more organization, I think, because if you have somebody texting Brian about a icy intersection, and you have somebody calling Emily about an same icy intersection, this
Right.
way Emily can say, hey, we're working on it, as opposed to both of them not knowing that the other one was working. So, you know, it does create a little bit better organization and probably a little quicker to be resolved.
Yeah. Now, Brian, I think this winter has been a little bit interesting from the standpoint of, you know, I think we had what, 2 or 3 snowfalls right there at the beginning, and I feel like we're getting so much advanced warning these days in terms of storms coming. So, what is your team usually doing to prepare for these winter storms? I got to imagine there's a lot of prep work that goes into keeping machines running efficiently and all of those things. So describe a little bit about your guys' process of what you do to prepare for a storm.
I'm gonna say, when it comes to that, that's I do so much pre-planning, basically, you know, with following all the weather casts and things that I follow to monitor the storms coming in. But for my guys, you know, while I'm working on that, that's where I'm having them, you know, I want you getting everything cleaned back up, getting, you know, all the windshields cleaned, the windshield washers refilled, you know, so it's ready for the next storm, making sure the sanders are all properly working, making sure all our hydraulics on the plows are rolling. You know, we've got 9 trucks that go out now, so there's a lot of keeping an eye on equipment itself to make sure everything's in that proper working order, so everything flows just perfect for the storm, so we don't have them breakdowns like we used to in the past. So
I've been on the what's wrong with it now. I'd like to kind of go to the what's right with it. But what's the most rewarding part of your job during the winter season, Brian? If there is one, I don't know.
I will tell you flat out, since I've worked here, my goal was always to keep our streets so clean, because, you know, you go to other places and you hear everybody complain about how their streets are. And I take a lot of pride in making sure that our streets are clean. Our trails are clean for the people to walk on. So when I see that stuff clean, that's where the compliments from the citizens come in. And then I get to pass that down to my guys. And, you know, it just makes everybody feel good that, you know, we're not just out there just pushing some snow around, that, you know, people are noticing this work and they're thanking you for it. So that's the most rewarding for me, is seeing that. So little side note here. So on the last big storm we had, I came into the office after the storm the next day, and it happened on the weekend, and I got an email from a gentleman from Wisconsin, up by the Green Bay area. And he said he just said that he was in town over the weekend and happened to stay in Tiffin for a wedding he was in town for. and that he noticed how bad the storm was. And when he woke up the next morning, how clean our streets were. And he wanted to know what my process was, what product I used, as far as salt. And I provided this gentleman with all this information. And it turns out he's like the assistant director at another town in Wisconsin. And I'm like, when you think about up north, I mean, these guys are supposed to be the guys teaching me. Right. And he's asking me. so that made me feel pretty darn good.
Oh man, I guess.
That's awesome.
Hey, listen, you mentioned something, and I kind of wanted to touch on it. The trail, like the one down by the Clear Creek. How far do you clear that?
We clear all our trails that we own. We maintain them just like we do in the summer with cleaning anything with leaves and all that. We plow them exactly how they need to be, every inch of the trails.
Do you go clear to Half Moon?
No. When, on that trail, we go to the west about, oh goodness, what is that? 1,000 feet, maybe. Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so. I know that was because we had gone. My wife and I had gone for a walk and went out to Half Moon, and it was really bad. Came back into the Frisbee Park, and it's like, oh, this looks fantastic. So I'm just curious, so people know that.
Yeah.
So you only do so much, but what you do well.
Yeah, so that part of the trail that's not getting clean, that's Johnson County.
Okay.
That takes care of that, and they don't plow theirs. They would rather leave it snow on it because they say a lot of people like to do that trail skiing, walking,
cross country.
Yeah, cross country. Yeah. So that's their reasoning for never clearing it.
Well, those of us who've fallen on the ice aren't real proud, are crazy about that. So I'll stick with the Tiffin Trail.
Yeah.
Brian, just out of curiosity, what do you use to clear the trails with?
We've got two Kubota UTVs that have got V plows on them, and we've got box sanders in the back of them so that we can apply salt if we get any ice on any of those. So far this year, we've been pretty fortunate to be able to just plow them off, and they've cleaned right up. But we've got the equipment, just like you see running on the streets. That's what we've got to take care of our trails. Same type of equipment.
So with that being said, is there any improvements or new additions as far as snow removal to the city for your department, or are we good to go right now?
Oh, I always want more equipment, but that's just getting that past the administrator.
You and the fire department always needing the best and brightest new shiny toy.
Exactly.
In there. One addition that we would like to see, and that was because of 2 years ago, that double blizzard that we had. We had drifts, over 12, 14 foot tall on the north end of town. And, it took us a long time with just having one end loader to trying to push that stuff back. And we've done a lot of research about looking at possibly getting a snowblower for that end loader. Okay. So that, if something like that were to happen again, it wouldn't take a day and a half to try and open some of those roads back up. It would be, a couple hour process.
Okay.
But that's like I say, it's just something we're looking at. I mean, that's no promises there.
Well, it makes sense. It's not like you're buying something just because it's shiny and new. If it's needed, it's needed, so. All right, great.
So Brian, we'll get you out of here on this. I know you got to get back to the day job here. You can't have fun all morning. If you could share just one pro tip for residents to make winter easier, what would it be?
Please do not.
Just one.
Please do not put your driveway snow back into our clean street. That would be great.
That
Oh,
guy
that's
from
so
Green
funny.
Bay would not be happy.
Yeah.
That's so funny, really, when you think about it. I think both Public Works and the resident are fighting the same thing,
Yeah.
right? I want my driveway to stay clean, and I don't want that pile of snow at the end. And you're sitting there saying, keep the snow out of my clean street. But all right, Brian. Well, hey, we really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much
You bet,
for
Brian.
being
Thank you.
the very first podcast guest of what is likely to become a huge success here, I believe. Right, Tim?
Right. Oh, of course. Yeah. And we'll probably make you up a plaque, that
Yeah.
you were the first guest. You might have to charge people for signatures,
Well, I really appreciate you guys having me on here.
All right, Director of Public Works, Brian Detert, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Have a good day, gentlemen.
All right, thank you again to Brian Detert. Tim, I don't know about you, but we talked off camera or off microphone. He's only got 7 employees.
Yeah.
To do what they do is quite remarkable, in my opinion.
And he keeps getting more to do because we keep getting more streets, more developments. And yeah, I give him a hard time. I'm going to give Jonas a shout out. That's the guy that scrapes my street. And I always give him a hard time about, hey, my driveway. And he looked at me one time and he goes, it could be worse. And I said, you are the best man ever. So he's got good people. I really do believe they really work hard, and I've been told by people from other cities, like his Green Bay person, wow, your streets are so clean. Our town never gets this clean. It's like, and those are right here in Iowa, real close. And it's like, well, you got to get good people like Brian.
Yeah, and I think in any city, right, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, so to speak, and I just like to remind everybody is doing the best that they can. And I think it's so important, particularly with Public Works, that again, it's a limited crew. So a lot of times when you see something, it's just because we don't know about it yet. So,
Exactly.
Brian and his team do such a great job, and just a reminder that if you do see something, say something, right?
Please reach out. Please do. Don't sit and just fume about it. Reach out and see if you can solve it, because it may be, like Tim said, something they don't know about.
Right. So, all right. Well, hey, I think we're winding down on this inaugural pilot episode.
That's right. Awesome.
I would like to.
I mean, not awesome. We're rewinding now, but I don't put people to sleep.
Well, we don't know about that yet. We'll wait for the first podcast reviews to come in. I don't know. We'll see how we did. And I think I would just like to give a reminder. Hopefully, we will just continue to get better at this.
Yes.
And add new things and figure out what works for us and who we are and what our personalities are. But I had a lot of fun today, Tim. I think I'm so happy that we were finally able to get this thing going. Yep. And really look forward to the future episodes.
And this is something to be said for. We just started joking around. Like I said originally, we started laughing about it and saying, oh, we should do a podcast, and it's developed into this. And I'm hoping it'll get out to the people, and the people will find it very useful. And so sometimes a joke turns into something pretty serious. So I'm hoping to stay serious, but we're going to keep it lighthearted and joke about it. So,
well, back to
as
that.
much as Ashley will let us, the producer, because I got her on my screen, and when she starts wagging her finger, I know I better pull it back. So.
Absolutely. But it is funny. You just jarred something in my memory. That I struggle sometimes.
Must have happened within the last year.
I do. Wow. Yeah, that appointment is coming up here pretty soon for the MPT, Mayor Pro Tem.
So what kind of chocolates do you like?
But no, I think it's so funny because you're right. You and I were talking about the podcast and saying this could be, or we were joking about it. We had a good laugh. And then I think it was like a month or two later, you and I both, it was almost like we came to the same conclusion at the same time, where it was like, I've been thinking about this independently. I don't think we had talked about it again. We're like,
Right.
we really should do that.
Yep.
So I think it's great. We're gonna have a lot of fun with it.
And this is episode 1. Woo-hoo!
Yeah. So I think producer Ashley is gonna get this posted. I mean, if you're listening to this, it's already out there. It's hit the airwaves. I don't know. What is it? Apple iTunes, I think, is where you can get it. Spotify is what I meant to say. Forget the Apple iTunes. It's Spotify. There will be links out there. We'll post this everywhere. Again, if you're listening to this, you clearly already found it. So you're ahead of the curve.
Thank you.
And if you've got questions, or you want to see some special content, or you say, God, I have this idea, it'd be really cool to put on the podcast, please let us know. All of our contact information is on the city webpage. Please feel free to use that. Again, Assistant City Administrator Ashley Platz, aka the producer here. She's keeping us in line. So if you reach out to her, she's another really, really good secondary source of information. And then, this is going to be out there on social. So throw some comments out there. Let us know how we're doing. Only if they're good ones. I don't necessarily want to hear all the bad ones, because we know we're probably not good at this, but we're going to give our best shot. So, so again, thank you everybody for listening to the inaugural pilot episode of Tiffin Talks. Thank you, Tiffin.